Hey everybody, I wanted to just do a little video today showing off some comparisons between these two guys. We've got the Gareth Bull and Wee Knives Shamweri and the Chris Reeves Sebenza 21 Small with the Cape Buffalo computer graphic. These have found their way into my pocket quite a bit over the past few weeks and months. Really like the size, profile and whatnot, and there's the quality on both, and I've really been kind of struck by the similarities in profile and whatnot between the two. So showing off some of the pros and cons and sort of why they've been ending up in my pocket fairly often. First off, just size comparison, something a little bit more standard. I'll pull out the Para 3 lightweight Spyderco. 3-inch blade on both. Inch-ish wide, not skinny like some other front flippers and everything on the Shamweri. But yeah, both have this hollow ground drop point blade, fairly standard stick-like handle with this little cutout for the lock bar access, as well as sort of a finger groove, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, both are by South African designers, of course. Chris Reeves from South Africa, but has been making his stuff in Idaho for the past, 30 years or something. And Gareth Bull does custom work out of South Africa, but this was his collaboration with Wee Knives. For the production model, that's tough to get, limited. I hunted one down and was kind of glad I got my hands on it because it's been sticking with me and I've been happy with it. So the Sebenza 21 Small, I am very surprised at how much I really like this. It's kind of, you got to try Sebenza at some point because it's such a standard. But I was expecting it to be more the case of a, like a PM2 or something like that, where you're not necessarily drawn to it for any reason other than that it's just got such a reputation behind it that you feel like you need to at least give it a shot. But I found this in my pocket quite a bit, just for a few reasons. I mean, first of all, the size is great. It's kind of that perfect, small enough to be legal and unintimidating and everything, but enough that it doesn't feel tiny. And coupled with that, on the Sebenza especially, everybody talks about these being, workers and stuff that you can do anything to. And there is definitely a huge feeling of just solidity in everything. The combination of just the straightforward titanium frame lock with the huge bronze washers and everything, just the smooth action. It really does feel like something you can do whatever you want with. The Chris Reeves come with this convex secondary bevel, which I'm not in love with. Supposedly it adds a little bit of strength to the edge to prevent rolling and things like that. I sharpened it up with just a 20° per side edge on my work sharp. It still feels convex and everything, but it makes the edge a little bit more acute. So it's been a good slicer in that way. The addition I wound up with, the Cape Buffalo computer graphic, purely just what became available. I was looking for a deal on a Small Sebenza 21 in anything other than just a plain Jane drop point. And found this at a good price. I do like the graphic quite a bit. It's reminiscent of an old junky kind of souvenir knife as I got as a kid in Wyoming. They had some American buffalo on it, but it fits in with the South African heritage and everything. And I like, the anodized thumb stud that matches it. The other thing I've been surprised about myself is that I've left the lanyard on. I do not use a lanyard on any of my other knives, and I don't know, people make fun of it. It is a little bit helpful for pulling out of your pocket, I guess, but just the fact that it came with it stock, I feel like I want to leave it on, and I don't know, it works and fits in, I feel like, with the buffalo animal theme. It's like the little tail or something, I don't know. Of course, the Sebenza is really meant for that slow roll with the thumb stud and everything. Some people complain about the pointiness of the thumb stud, but I find I don't tend to open them by putting sort of the meat of my thumb onto the point of the stud anyway. I tend to use the tip to push it like that, or the side even, more like that. So I don't have any issues there. And then as far as like flicking it out, can be done. It's a little tricky, especially under the camera here. You really have to use the end of your thumbnail to get it, but it definitely is more satisfying to just, you know, roll in and out. And I like how that works. It's got a good sounds to it with the way it locks up and the way that it, you know, smooth is what everybody says. And when you got it greased up nicely and assembled properly, it really is. The construction is really straightforward. You know, I've had this apart a few times. It's just got, I believe these are just hex Allen keys, and it comes with a tool. You know, pop that screw out, pivot screw out, and you're good to go. You know, very simple to get back and forth, you know, assembled, disassembled, and you can tell it's meant to last a long time. As far as, you know, the value on these and everything, I mean, I see what people say when they talk about the fact that it's not, you know, if you're looking at spec sheets, it's S35VN, it's titanium frame lock. There's no contouring to the titanium or anything. There's no especially fancy, like, you know, milling or weight reduction, but I just like the slimness of it, the simplicity of the mechanism, just done well. There's a reason I looked on the used market because, yeah, I probably wouldn't want to pay the $450 retail price on one of these, but at a reasonable cost on the secondary, I'm happy to have it in my collection. And on top of that, just the unquantifiable fact that it's, you know, a famous Chris Reeves Sebenza. It's not something that you're going to get grief from anybody who knows anything about. It's recognizable and famous for a reason. And it's a nice kind of conversation piece with this graphic on there and everything else. So there you go. This one is definitely one of, you know, this would be in the running for like my pick if I had to, you know, choose an only knife or something like that, because it's simple, rugged, enough blade for what I want to do, and everything is basically good enough. And I respect that. The Shamweri, the difference with it is the fact, you know, obviously it's a front flipper with this front flipper mechanism right up here. Flick it out like that with the edge of your thumb. It's not the most intuitive front flipper I've got compared to especially some of the Pena and Rayot stuff I've dealt with that are a little bit more of a top flipper. But it works just fine, and the action is very good. You can see, I mean, it drops shut pretty well. Very smooth on bearings, and just does not take much encouragement to get it to close back up, which is nice. There's a little bit of contouring just in this one direction, convexitude or whatever you want to call it on the titanium. Kind of breaks it up from being a really simple pill-shaped kind of affair, like the Kaiser Feist has a lot of similarity to this, just in a much plainer sort of profile and everything. It doesn't have the same premium feeling as the Wii construction. And it's got this big pivot collar on the back here. Not sure why they don't have it on the front. Feels like it would add more interest on the show side, but it works well. And they've got this interesting construction with the hidden clip hardware and everything. This is really one of my favorite milled clips because it's just, it seems like it's part of the scale, like it's machined from the same piece of titanium, and it's really one of the deepest carry milled clips that I've really experienced or noticed. I think that that's great. The tension's good. The ramp is just totally fine and adequate for getting in and out. And as far as like ergonomics, it's got a very similar positioning, I feel like, to the Sebenza, maybe a little bit smaller, a little more comfortable because it's milled, but that works great. Compared to the Sebenza, the Shamweri blade is definitely, at least on paper, a bit nicer. It's got that very similar profile as far as length, the drop point, the concave grind, hollow grind, but it is 20 CV. You can definitely feel that it's a much more acute hollow grind. It comes to a much thinner edge. It doesn't have that convex edge, so it does feel like it's a much slicier, sharper kind of blade to it. that seems to work better if I was cutting up an apple or something like that. But not a huge deal either way. I tend to like full flats better generally, just because you don't end up with the I feel like with the hollow grinds you still get caught up a little bit, but if I was going to give an advantage in blade, it would be to this, at least on paper. The 20CV is obviously, you know, higher grade than what Chris Reeve has been using for years with their S35. But I don't know. I don't know how much that part of it really makes much of a difference to me. There's no lanyard hole or anything on the Shamweri. You know, no issue there as far as I'm concerned. It's not something I generally care about. But yeah, this is just one of those things that I'm surprised more companies haven't done something like this. I like that it's thin. I like that it's, you know, fairly straightforward and sterile. Simple ergonomics, with just being this kind of pill shape with the cutout. And yeah, it's one I like quite a bit that's sticking around. I was glad I was able to track one down. One thing I'll point out is a difference sort of ergonomically. It's a subtle but I find somewhat meaningful distinction, is the little cutout for the lock bar axis you get on the two. I feel like on the Shamweri it's actually a little bit closer up towards the blade, which has two impacts. First of all, on the Sebenza, some people complain that the ergonomics just feel too small, that you can't quite get a full grip on the handle. And I don't know, I get a full grip, but they're definitely a little further down towards the butt and a little bit further away from the cutting edge, just because of the location of this little lock bar cutout where your index finger naturally wants to lock into. So it's not as good. It also makes it feel like you're a little bit further away with the way they've got this ramp done for the jimping back here. Like your thumb is designed to go there, but more naturally feels like you should be up here more. On the Shamweri, you're a little bit closer to the blade. You feel like you got a little bit more room to work with as a result. It doesn't have any kind of ramping back here, so it's a little bit more straightforward to put your thumb wherever you want. Kind of do these kinds of grips for precision things when you want to. But yeah, other than that, it's got a lot of similarities in profile. It's the contouring, the blade profile, the handle profile, and everything else. One thing I do like about both of these for this kind of form factor of a knife is just the slimness of them generally. Both are under 1/2 inch. I'll pull out my general go-to in this kind of range, the TRM Neutron here. See, at least with the Sebenza, barely, if any, thicker than the Neutron, and most of that is just in the blade, even with these contoured scales and everything. And compare that to the Shamweri, yeah, pretty similar. And I like that. I kind of like those thinner in this dimension, wider in this dimension kind of handles as far as ergonomics are concerned. But yeah, my general feeling is that if you're an enthusiast in this kind of space, you're going to get your hands on a Sebenza at some point. You know, small one, large one, whatever. For the small, at least, it does compare very, stacks up very similarly to each other. And it's a much different experience, but I feel like if you like the form factor and you like the size of something like this, you don't have an issue with the ergonomics. It's definitely a great standard to have. I'm really happy with both of these. The Shamweri, you know, again, everything about it on paper feels like I would like it better. You know, the better blade steel, the better, well, not necessarily better, but the deeper hollow grind. And, you know, just the more fun, fidgety kind of action to it with running on bearings and being much more of a drop shot type affair rather than the slow roll thing you get with a Sebenza. But I don't know, in practice the Sebenza is just, it's so much different from you know, the other fancy knives that you like to put your hands on. I mean, it's So many of the higher end knives out there are high end because of, you know, fancy flipper actions and stuff, or fancy mechanisms and titanium contour and everything. You've got like, this is another one of my favorites, but the Alliance Mini Slim Pickens. You got the fat carbon sort of scale, the contoured titanium, fancy button lock mechanism and flipper and whatnot. It's a great knife, but in a way the Sebenza feels a little bit more unique at this point because it hasn't tried to go into the high-speed, fancy, finicky kind of actions and mechanisms and locks and whatnot that a lot of the higher-end stuff is using to make a name for itself. And that's, I think, part of the reason why it's just something I feel so important that distinguishes it in my collection as you look for these new things. There's no novelty here. There's no fidget factor. There's no fancy special look what I can do kind of attitude about it. Similarly but differently, the Shamweri is just a great front flipper, and I do really like front flippers, but it's one that's in a size factor kind of cut out as far as the blade profile as well as the length, as well as the spine. It just makes it a lot more logical and well-rounded as an EDC for the kinds of things that I like to carry. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of an insight if you've handled one or both of these. I'm curious about the other or both, how they stack up. But yeah, these are two that are some of my favorites. And thanks for watching. Hope it gives you a little bit of info, and have a good one. Enjoy your collections, everybody.